Good afternoon. On this episode, what we're going to be doing is reviewing the Armasight Vampire night vision scope that I run on my Coyote setup. Had a lot of questions about it, and it's got the Core 2 technology and everything on there, which is kind of in between Generation 1 and Generation 2 night vision optics from the way I understand it. It's the only night vision scope I've ever owned. So it's the only one I can compare it to. However, I have played with several sets of military-grade night vision optics and things like that because I do have access to them through my work, active duty military. I've had an opportunity to play with those a few times. But we're going to be reviewing this scope right here because I have absolutely been impressed with it. I spent right about $700 on the scope itself, and for bang for the buck, I've been extremely impressed. What you get for the $700 is the quick disconnect and mountability. It's just you push on the little locking lever, pop these things open, and you can pop the scope right off of the rifle itself. And it's got a Picatinny Weaver rail mount. Not going to unmount the scope right now because it's I just don't feel like unmounting it and possibly messing up the zero. But it does come right back very, very close. Up on top, you have a focus knob that you can actually focus this thing from. I've got it anywhere from 5 yards out to as far as you can see in my neighborhood, which is about a quarter mile out. You can still see, and then when you're within the normal shooting range of up to about 65 yards, this thing will actually focus down. And the only thing that you notice different is going to be the fact that it's kind of green. It's got a very green hue to it and everything instead of just being looking through, a normal scope. So imagine everything you see, just green, and it looks exactly the same. On the crosshair settings, on the knob back here on the back, you actually have up to 7 brightness levels on the crosshairs. So level 2 is what I usually use, and that's when I've got the floodlight on. And that thing, it illuminates everything. You can see it very bright, and it doesn't overpower your night vision or anything. It's got the little eye socket piece back here, just rubber, fits around your face, makes it to where when you're looking through the scope, you're looking through the scope, and that's it. On the side of it, I do have the Armasight light as well. It's an IR floodlight that throws out there, so when there's like a moonless night or something like that, there's very, very low light. You turn that thing on, and it's like having a no-kidding spotlight out there with you when you're hunting. So just light up the entire backyard, every place that I'm aiming. And for the spotting scope, I've also got the Armasight floodlight on that, and it's a Armasight Vega is the model I got for a spotting scope. This way, when I'm sitting out there, coyote hunting and everything, my son, he can sit right next to me, and he's got his own little spotting scope, so he can sit there and look around, and help me see if anything's moving out there in the backyard. This whole set I picked up for about $900, and then another $100 for the additional floodlight on the side of there, so that my son would be able to light everything up and spot with me. But, in the end, it's worth it. The spotting scope does have an IR illuminator built into it, and it does, illuminate everything, but it does not illuminate everything like the floodlight does. And it is an adjustable beam to where you can screw it down, and it'll be a spotlight, or it could be a pretty good-sized floodlight. But it's very, very easy, to use, very easy to set up. It runs on the standard CR123 batteries, and then to hook up the camera to it, I've got the camera mount here. I picked it up off of Amazon, but for whatever reason, I did not keep the box for this. And, I'm not sure why. But there you go. It's the Steady Pix Deluxe from Orion to show you the brand name and everything. And then a couple of mods that I had to do to it to get it to where it would actually hold the camera real steady to where I like. First thing I did is through the top, you can see the screw. I drilled down through the frame itself and made a slot for the screw to slide in because the presser foot, basically, which is what I'm going to call that part there, was it was pretty loose, and when you screwed this all the way onto the scope itself, it would actually slide out, to the front and to the back, which allowed this to pivot side to side. So what I did is I put that screw in the top, Unfortunately, I didn't have a tap and die small enough to actually thread the hole in the top of this presser foot, but got a machine screw basically in there to work, and it guides it on. I also had to put a spacer here because there was too much excess space in between the ends of the threads and the presser foot itself, because you can see it's just held on with the little C-clamp there. So I put that washer in there to take up the space, which again takes away from the slop, going side to side and everything like that. And you can see right there, it still has some play to it. So what I'm going to end up doing is the exact same thing on the bottom that I did to the top here. Now, also, the two nuts on the bottom there, you can see. Let me set the camera down here so I can explain this. The two nuts on the bottom here, you can see how tall they are. Sit up probably about 3/4 of an inch. Well, on the Air Force Condor, when I was putting it on the back of the gun, it sits right behind the scope. The tank, for getting it to sit up with the camera itself, was actually getting in the way. It would not sit flat. So I had to sand off that to where you can see the difference in the height of these two screws now. So just basically took the belt sander to it, set it on there, knocked that thing down quite a bit. You can still tighten your camera down. It still works perfectly fine. And now I've got a highly functional camera mount. The camera I'm going to be using is a Sony HD camera. Just simply got the little side pop-out screen on there like that. Turns it on. And then when you want to record, you hit start and stop right there on the side, and you get a good view right down through the scope. Now, once it gets a little bit darker outside, I'm going to put all three of these things together and record a video so you can see the difference between, all the settings on the crosshairs. I'll bring it in and out of view with the focus knob, and I'm also going to turn the floodlight on and off so that you guys can see exactly how this whole thing fits together, how it works together, and exactly what you're going to get for the scope itself. One other thing I want to go over is it's got the standard scope zeroing, so half minute of a adjustment, up and down, and it's got the windage knob on the side, so you can set the adjustment in the zero exactly the way you would a standard scope. You can do it during the daylight. If you notice, the cover has a tiny hole right there in the middle of it, so you can utilize the scope during the daylight. But one thing I have found is when the sun is coming straight at you, it actually still floods it out. The one time I shot it during the daylight with the night vision scope on it, I had to put my hand out here in front of it and kind of cover up to where I wasn't covering the hole, but it still knocked down most of the light. I was also shooting at a downward angle, so it kind of covered up some more. But I'm not comfortable utilizing this thing during the daylight hours. I'll throw my Aeon scope on there and have at it with that if I ever do coyote hunting in the day. But for target hunting and things like that, I'll always use the Aeon scope. But that's it for now. As soon as it gets dark, we'll record the rest of the video, put it all together, hopefully have it on YouTube by the end of the week. And that should answer pretty much everything you guys, all the questions you have. And again, it's the Armasight Vampire Night Vision Rifle Scope. Got it off of Optics Planet, and I got the rest of the camera stuff. The Orion base and the Sony camera, I got that off of Amazon. Them people just love it. They see me coming. So, till the next chunk of it, you guys have a good one. Alright, so it took me about 15-20 minutes here to get the camera all set up and get it exactly where I wanted it placed and everything on this thing. But this is what the setup looks like. So right now we've got the camera actually mounted to the back. We had to take the rubber eyepiece off, obviously. Mount it right to the rear end of the camera, or to the rear end of the scope. The camera itself can actually butt right up against the scope. There's no recoil, so obviously you don't have to worry about the rifle itself banging against the camera or anything. But you can back it, as far out as you need to get it, because you see, still got the entire length here. But it fits very nicely, nice, snug, and compact on the back of the rifle there. And then, like I said, once it gets a little bit darker, I'll fire this thing up. We'll go outside. We'll take a look through the scope cam And I'll show you what my backyard looks like under night vision, with and without the floodlight, and all the different levels and focus knob and things like that. But I just want to take a second to show you exactly what it looks like, you know, on the rifle itself when it's all set up and ready to rock and roll. So until it gets dark, you know, stand by to stand by. Alright, so here we go with part 2 of the review. So there's the crosshairs and all that good stuff. We're going to kick on the night vision IR illuminator here in about 2 seconds, and I'm going to focus. So there we go, with natural lighting of pretty much nothing. There is a tree that's about, I'd say, 5 yards ahead of me, but with no moonlight, nothing but starlight. That's what it looks like dead ahead. Alrighty, here is let's see, crank that stuff in. We're gonna go ahead and kick on the our illuminator, and there we go. Just crank the focus knob in right there on the IR illuminator, level 1. Where the crosshairs are sitting at right now is sitting about 30 yards out. With 2, crank it up. Yeah, it's almost like daylight and all that good stuff. And then we can crank up the crosshairs. Bang, it's about as bright as you want to go. We can still crank up the IR illuminator. That's max level on the IR illuminator. And again, yeah, the rock I'm aiming at right now is sitting at roughly about 30-35 yards out from the point that I am sitting right now. But the detail is very, very impressive. Ooh, hold on. Crank back. I think I cranked it too far. Skadoosh. There we go. Alright. Then that tree right there with all the detail. 10 yards ahead of me. Try and get on some the point of it, just so you can see how you can focus on it. It's actually very, very detailed on the way you can get, and then you just focus it right down. Bang. So from what you can tell and all that good stuff, it's kind of run through it pretty quick, so don't waste everybody's time. All the way out there where it's aiming right now is 65 yards out. Bam. And we will adjust the IR illuminator in like a scope, because it's a LED. So LEDs are, you know, not round like a light bulb, so that's why you get that square shape. And then you crank it out, and you get a floodlight. I don't know how big it'll actually flood to, because you know, the field of view I deal with is fairly narrow, you know, when it comes to a football field size shape. But that is a lawnmower stuffed in the bushes for us by the people that lived here before us. But that right there should give you a fairly good example, you know, how good a detail you can get from bam, turned off, bang, bang, there you go. Alright, so that's a run through on the scope, the optics, and everything else, and I will go inside and finish up the rest of the review. Hope this helps anybody that's Alright, so just ran through the night vision operational check of it to show you how the entire camera setup works. And again, we got the HD Sony camera set up on there, and the Orion base that connects it to it with several modifications that we've explained and everything. And then of course the Armasight Vampire Core 2 infrared sight. And if you check out the YouTube channel, we actually got a video where I was trying to finish up the review of this scope and setup, and caught a coyote in the backyard and ended up popping him. So if you check out my YouTube channel, you can see that video, plus you can see this video. And I hope this review really helps everybody to try and figure out, you know, how good of a setup everything is. The only complaint I really have is the trying to get everything to figure out how you can aim through there and get adjusted to looking through the camera setup when you flip out this the side piece, because now, you know, it tells you the lens cover might be closed. That's because the scope's off right now. But trying to aim your rifle through the crosshairs on this little flip out lens, flip out screen basically, is kind of a pain. You know, it takes a little bit of practice, but let's crank it up here because I got the cover on it, but you can see right there where the crosshairs are at. So trying to get used to that aiming is interesting, but you know, a few practice shots and everything, and hopefully this camera setup will help out. But this scope is definitely very, very impressive. And again, it's the Armasight Vampire Night Vision Core 2 technology. Yeah, it's the only one I've used besides military grade stuff, and I'm pretty impressed with it. So, thanks again for tuning in. You guys have a good day.